Good morning. I am Ivan Harbour of Rogers Stirk, Harbour and Partners. I'm presenting today with Tom Weeks of Lendlease Chicago. And together, our organisations have been central to the design and delivery of Sydney's largest urban renewal project, Barangaroo South, a culmination of 10 years' work. This is, without doubt, the most important city-changing project my practice has been involved in since the Pompidou Centre, not only shifting the gravity of the city, but helping it evolve for the 21st century. Sydney is probably the most famous harbour in the world. The Opera House and the Harbour Bridge are symbols not just of the city, but of the country too. The CBD, the City of Sydney, is concentrated south of the Harbour Bridge and is sliced in two by the highway that discharges from that bridge. To the east, the CBD has thrived, but to the west, it had, until very recently, remained a port facility discharging containers onto the city's streets. The bridge and its highways have divided the city, where the tourist image sits to the east and the majority of the city's inhabitants live to the west. The vast 54-acre concrete apron with its 1.4-mile waterfront emerged after 200 years of dockside development, infilling the natural coastline at the place the first Europeans settled. With the departure of the stevedoring company, the state saw an opportunity to integrate the land back into the city with a promise to deliver 50% public open space at no cost to the taxpayer and to complete a 9-mile waterfront promenade from east to west. The area was renamed Barangaroo in honour of an influential woman whose husband, Woollawara Bennelong, who was an Aboriginal senior and interlocutor between the British settlers and the indigenous Eora people. Bennelong lends his name to the neighbouring point, of course, which sites the Sydney Opera House. A development authority was established to oversee the transformation, and an international competition was organised in 2004 for a master plan in which we were the runners-up. The transformative project was divided into 3 parts. The restoration of the headland to its pre-industrial form, designed by American landscape architect Peter Walker. It's a beautiful piece of landscape architecture. There's Barangaroo Central, which is currently in the design phase, and where a new metro station will be located. We're not involved in that. And Barangaroo South, which is the financial engine for the whole. It's master planned by us and developed in its entirety by Lendlease. It's involved 13 different architectural and landscape practices. The first phase is now complete and the subject of this presentation. To make a city work, it has to be well connected. The concrete apron was reclaimed from the sea and was separated by a sandstone cliff from the city's built back edge. The only link from the east under the highway sat at the southern corner of the apron and involved negotiating steep streets and roads designed to move container trucks in and out of the wharf. The key strategic move to mass the new precinct concentrated all of the dense development at that southerly end, focused around the sole existing connection to the rest of the city. We propose that any tall-built cluster should be constrained by a notional frame that's characteristic of the city's existing built form. It would draw in some existing tall buildings and would protect Sydney's 2 icons, the Opera House and the bridge, from background development in the future. Controversially, this would place scale right at the water's edge, in direct conflict with city planning policy. The resultant master plan shows not only this primary connection at the south, but future connections envisaged to integrate the whole of Barangaroo with the rest of the city. The northern connection has been made since the advent of Peter Walker's Park. To create a democratic arrangement addressing the waterfront with view sharing and avoiding an hierarchy of street addresses, we dispense with the conventional car-driven grid form. The urban structure of the precinct, as a fan of streets and buildings, achieves a number of goals. A response to solar orientation to minimise heat gain from the harsh western sun, a focus on the movement of pedestrians from the existing city core gracefully into the new precinct, and also being a good neighbour by giving greater breadth of aspect to existing tall buildings on the city edge. To give focus to the development, we started by breaking up the monotonous dock edge with a view to orienting spaces northwest to avoid that harsh western sun. We wanted to bring a human scale to the streets and spaces by a dramatic change of scale and grain, reducing street widths to maximise people density to achieve the critical mass for a vibrant street life. At an FAR of 8, Barangaroo is at the density of the Sydney's city core. For the first time, it brings the dense core right down to the water, with its focus on the water's edge. Although not a requirement of the state, Lendlease wanted to create Australia's first carbon-neutral mixed-use city-centred development, making it relevant and desirable in the medium and long term. Barangaroo has been selected as one of 19 global Clinton Climate Initiative projects delivered through design, implementation, and in operation. The commercial towers have achieved the highest rated 6-star Green Star rating to date, and their construction has delivered 20% reduction in embodied carbon over the norm. The neutral status is made viable through shared efficiencies across the development, uneconomic on a conventional singular site. A single 9-acre basement facility centrally serves 9 buildings, with Blackwater Recycling and the largest private waste recycling facility in Australia. Shared building services include a district harbour water cooling system, so no heat rejection on the roofs, photovoltaics that power all of the external lighting and the water recycling plant, tenancy agreements that guarantee energy supply from sustainable sources, and the largest bicycle hub in Australia, and car parking at 1/3 of the city's norms. The single basement has allowed only 3 vehicular access points across the precinct, leaving the streets for people. Although the tall buildings are spaced at a similar distance to those of George Street, the City of Sydney's High Street, shown on the left, the streets are kept tight at a human scale. The residual space between the towers provides private amenity on the street buildings for the office spaces above. The network of streets is varied in scale, responding directly to location and orientation, from 100 foot wide at the water's edge to a 20-foot intimate laneway at the eastern edge. This variety sets the tone for Barangaroo as a genuine piece of city where you're never more than 3 minutes from any facility you might need. These sketches summarise the approach to the character of the place. The 3 towers, all designed by us, were conceived as siblings and composed as such, not competing for dominance or iconic status over each other, but all providing adaptable space to suit a wide variety of tenancies. By contrast, at street level, the central building, designed by us, acts as a setting against which the many street buildings by other architects are placed. In this manner, the streets have the diversity of a city that we enjoy. The radial grid ensures that each street corner is different with its own sense of place. The plan arrangement starts with the towers arranged on the fan, opening out towards the water and embracing the views. The offset core floor plates are over 25,000 square foot net, with a democratic plan form that avoids corner hotspots and places the more social spaces towards the north, the sun and the main harbour. At the base of the towers, the street building roofs form amenity spaces for the commercial towers. The upper levels of the street buildings include spaces for childcare, a click and collect micro department store, an outpatient medical facility and a fitness centre. The waterfront buildings at the bottom of the image house apartments rising to 9 stories. The buildings address a network of pedestrian-only streets running east-west, that's up and down, and north-south. A singular vehicle street runs behind the primary promenade. At street level, the lobbies are accessed not of the primary streets, but the secondary pedestrian streets. The drama of contrast between the scale of the lobbies and the streets makes Barangaroo unique and might be a game changer. It exaggerates their scale, but gives them a calmness in contrast with the hubbub of activity outside. The lobbies are designed as public spaces and have hosted cultural events. They blur the line between indoors and out and allow a public shortcut route through the heart of the precinct. Retail takes all the prime frontage, possible because of the single basement. There are 90 or so shops with narrow frontages serving food, coffee, selling wine and a pint of milk, getting a haircut and doing the dry cleaning. Barangaroo South has been connected to the city by bringing an entrance to the main station right to its front door. The connection has allowed for new ferry wharves to take the pressure off Circular Quay, Sydney's main ferry terminal. Barangaroo has become a gateway to the city core from these ferry wharves, an integrated part of the city. Arriving from Wynyard Station, the main rail station in the CBD, you can see the topography that separated Barangaroo in the past. Bridges and escalators now overcome the level changes and bring Barangaroo within 5 minutes' walk from Sydney's main street. At the principal point of arrival, a covered piazza plays host to art installations and a bit of respite before diving into the streets and laneways. The waterfront promenade is framed by the activity of the ferry wharves and a shady dining terrace organised in the European manner with waiters crisscrossing the sidewalk. Above the restaurants are the apartments I've mentioned with views across the harbour. The primary pedestrian street between the wharves and the station is framed by a grocery, department store and medical facility on the one side, and on the other by a pub and multi-storey waterfront restaurant, both designed by small architectural practices. The vehicular street also has retail space with outdoor seating, serving the lunchtime demands of the precinct. Towards the city edge, there is a narrow laneway with small-scale, quirky shops and bars. Only by developing the site as a whole has it been possible to create such small-scale, active outdoor spaces between buildings. They help bring the character and diversity associated with established city places without resorting to pastiche. The relationship between the tall buildings and the streets is expressed at the lobbies, where the street buildings open up to reveal the scale of the towers above. These streets have a more civic feel, without the awnings associated with shops. The large cornices give some protection in the event of a rainy dash from drop-off to lobby. The lobbies break the scale and alignment of the street wall to create outdoor work and meeting places, all at a human scale. This triptych shows the sequence through one of the open lobbies, from north to south, from left to right. The treatment of daylight, artificial light, and acoustic quality is integral with the architecture of the spaces. The lobbies are part of the public realm throughout the day, when you're drawn through them by their transparency and manipulation of daylight. They are, of course, a celebration of Australian light. Sydney is a city that does outdoors. The public realm, from lobbies to cafes, celebrates this lifestyle, and it has consequently become an integral part of the city very quickly, as if it's been there for many years. Oh, and it's not just a 9-to-5 place. These guys might be going home, but the evening crowd of Sydney-siders and tourists are just arriving. Tom.
Thank you, Ivan. Good morning. At all Lendlease developments, we strive to create the best places. The measure of success of this goal is how the place is activated by those who use it. From a vacant brownfield site a few short years ago, Barangaroo has become a bustling, active, and ever-growing community today. It is the first large-scale, carbon-neutral community in Australia. It has, as Ivan mentioned, 90 retail shops, approximately 300,000 square feet, that have attracted numerous city-siders and visitors and tourists and workers, and that keeps growing every day. There are approximately 30,000 workers and visitors that come and go from the site every day. In total, there's approximately 5.75 million square feet of above-ground construction in Barangaroo South. As Ivan mentioned, there is the below-grade basement, which houses all of the loading and parking and a back-of-house space, approximately 400,000 feet, which really allows the upper street level to be pedestrian-friendly and active. When completed, there'll be 2,000 residents approximately and about 900 units over the Barangaroo South site. We've experienced a 20% increase in the amount of people who come to work by rail versus the rest of the CBD, which we think is great. And similarly, people who travel to the site by car has been reduced to 14% of what the typical worker commute is in the rest of Sydney CBD. Also, the parking that we have is 1/3 of what is typically provided in the CBD. And as mentioned, 50% of the site is dedicated to public use, and this public use is very, very active. Also, I think we've, like any great place, Barangaroo has evolved in ways not necessarily anticipated. As an example, where while influencing and changing tenant attitudes for the need for more conventional spaces such as tenant generator storage, which many tenants view as essential, Barangaroo was able to kind of change that thinking and then freed up some generator space and was able to convert that into a theater space for the benefit of all who work, live, and enjoy Barangaroo. Barangaroo has a tremendous story around creation of a great place that connects Sydney to the water and so much more. We thank you very much for this opportunity, and have a nice day.